Hey everyone, welcome back to our stream podcast. In today's episode, we are thrilled to have Dwayne Edwards, a distinguished veteran U.S. Marine Corps officer and the founder of Veterans Mental Health Assessments, VMHA. Dwayne's unique journey from military service to creating a platform for mental health support for veterans offers invaluable insights that we want to share with our veteran trucking community. Hey, Dwayne, how are you?
Hey, John, I'm doing well. First off, John, thanks for having me. Great to see you again. And to your community, hello, everyone. Really thrilled to be in conversation with everyone. So glad to be here.
Yeah, it took us 10 years to finally do something together. For people that don't know, Dwayne and I first met in Manhattan at the Ace Hotel in the lobby. It was kind of our, home away from home. The lobby it still is a really cool place. It's not Silicon Valley, but it has that like high tech vibe. So for nerds like me, if I want to be cool, I'll just go to the Ace Hotel, and that's where we met for coffee. And you were in transition.
That's right.
And then magic really started to happen for you after that. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. No, the transition, it was 2016 or 2015, if you will, sometime around then. I just left the Marine Corps September 30th of 2013. Remember the exact day and whatnot. And I was trying to figure out, how do I make the best use of my skill set? How do I put myself in a position where I can be successful? And, it was during that time, I'm thrilled that we connected and thrilled that we kind of stayed in touch and whatnot. And, I guess all good things take time, kind of like, seasoning and ingredients and whatnot. So, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And, I think TTT was perhaps an idea at that point. Mm-hmm. I was coming fresh off my corporate career. Of course, right out of high school, I didn't go to college right away, but I joined the Marines, ended up in Paris Island, Camp Lejeune, then stationed in Albany, Georgia at the Marine Corps Logistics Base. And people don't think of the military, especially the Marines, as supply chain or transportation. But essentially, one of our greatest competitive advantages on the worldwide global theater is supply chain, is logistics, is troop transport. And so when I started TTT and started to meet with the trucking community, I'd always been in logistics and transportation, but never really in doing what we're doing now. Not sure anybody was really into what we're doing now, but it was kind of a natural fit. And I meet people along the way, like Louis Pugh. I think, Dwayne, you and I were talking about OI, the Owner Operators Association, and Louis Pugh, who's the executive vice president, is an Army veteran. And he and I talk long and deep about our trucking community, not only OIDA members and the TTT community, but the veteran community that is within side trucking. So when you and I talked a few weeks ago, it just makes perfect sense that you've identified that as a rich market for you.
Yeah, no, John. So a couple of things I think you hit on. Battles are won, with logistics, right? I mean, so logistics is literally the backbone of our military, our strategy. And so it just makes a lot of sense that many of us find ourselves within, logistics community in some capacity, right? And so that makes a lot of sense. And two, I love this notion about just the foundation that we get as veterans, right? And so regardless, enlisted officer, doesn't really matter. There's so much that we learn about leadership, about teamwork, about the ability to prioritize, manage risk that allows us to be successful, I think, in other areas.
Yep.
Albeit the transition can be challenging, right? And so I think you were hitting on that. And so I'd love it. I think we're going to probably spend some time and talk about the transition and how that can be challenging a little bit. But you're spot on in terms of the trucking community, owner operators, and how the skill set that many of us learn from the military lends itself to be to really prove for great success within the trucking community. So a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it takes guts and tenacity to have your own business. And I'm speaking primarily about the owner operators are out there. And we work with a lot of owner operators. There's about there's over 1 million owner operators that just have a single truck. And north of 10% of those million plus are veterans. And a very high percentage are actually Marines, which is kind of cool for me. Although we don't discriminate, sailors, airmen, soldiers, we're fine with everyone. We treat everyone with dignity and respect. But I think of, as I'm on with you, I think about one of our good partners, Bill Pratt, who just started SMSLB, Strong Like Bull Trailer Sales. He just started this business about a month ago. So shout out to Bill. Marine. We shared a lot of stories that we can't repeat here about Camp Lejeune and Court Street. We're sworn to secrecy there. But so tell the audience, tell our community, if you would, Dwayne, your transition specifically.
Yeah.
And then the credentials that you have now that you've earned, not just Yale, but other credentials that you have that give you the authority and your practice to take your practice, your agency to veterans to help them.
Yeah. Thank you for that, John. So, I founded VMHA, Veteran Mental Health Assessment, and we are a group practice. We have a team of doctoral level psychologists that specifically focus on our veteran community to ensure that our veterans get high quality and accessible mental health assessments to support their VA mental health claims, right? And the reason we do that is that, many veterans, including a lot of folks within the trucking community, find themselves within 3 categories. First category being, hey, you know what? I never filed a claim. I've been impacted. You know what? Maybe I should file. After decades of impact, leaving service, I need to go take care of this. The second category is, you know what, I tried to file, I was denied, but I was impacted as in my mental health, and I need to get evidence for that claim. And the third category is, you know what, I just need comprehensive evidence, right? I want to make sure I'm starting this thing off with the strongest foot forward and whatnot to make sure that I get exactly what I deserve. So those are 3 categories we've seen.
Beautiful.
And we've seen a lot of folks within our trucking community have come to us thus far. And that's what kind of spawned me to reach out to you, John. But I want to share my own personal journey as kind of how what kind of brought me to this place now. And so, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in infantry and intelligence, and I left in 2013. And while I was in the Marine Corps, my wife was getting her PhD in psychology, right? So she was going to Columbia at the time. She's always been my smarter half, and so I'll make sure this is recorded, right? So I'm on, the books as saying that. And so over the years, I've had a few jobs. I was in sales, I was in operations, product design, and I was kind of felt like fighting my way up the ladder to get to the place where I felt like my skill set was being really utilized, right? And so all the while I was doing that, I remember my wife would, every now and then say, hey, maybe you should go talk to somebody, seeing a psychologist. I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I what do you mean? Like, I figured it out thus far, I can figure it out to move forward. And so that was always my answer, John. It was always, I can figure it out. And so finally, I was doing some innovation work at Volvo. I was leading, large team across product design, technology, building out their subscription model, graduated with my MBA from Yale. And I'll tell you what happened was that I was in a meeting at work, and, I was, being challenged in a way, and which natural, it happens, but I had a sharper response than I would have liked. Right. And it was in that moment, John, that I recognized I'm not completely in control. Right. I'm doing all the things to move forward. I'm investing, I'm getting, the credentials, I'm doing the work, I'm doing all these things, but I can't afford to have something like this hold me back. And so, and again, my wife was like, hey, maybe you should go talk to somebody. And so finally I did. And at the time I was living in Westchester, New York. And I had a corporate job, which meant I had, access to high quality healthcare. And based on where I was living, I had access to high quality psychologists, right? Sure. And so I was able to find a psychologist that was within a mile from where I lived. And I met with her every Tuesday for about 6 months while doing some other things that she asked me to do. And I'll tell you, John, that was far by far one of the best choices I've ever made in my life. Right. And I had no idea going into it what that choice would do for me as a human being. But it was hard. It was great. It was there were moments when I couldn't really talk to people because my mind wasn't making sense. And then once I got through that great period, it was like that scene from Matrix 1 with Neo when he could see the zeros and ones and he puts his hands up. It was literally like I was seeing the world differently for the first time, right? And I was seeing myself differently for the first time.
Sure.
And so I lived that, right? And so I lived that. And with that experience, what I've learned from that is, one, how important being able to prioritize your mental health is, but two, how fortunate and lucky I was at the time to be able to have the access, the tools, all those things, the people around me to make sure that I can move forward. And so since then, I was able to take on more responsibility, take on even more challenging roles. I've grown personally, professionally, but so much of that is a function of being able to focus in on my mental health, right? And so there's my personal journey. But then, we fast forward a few years, and Akila, my wife, she was doing assessments for veterans for another practice. And, we sat back. It was maybe 2 or so years ago. We're like, okay, they're seeing, hundreds of veterans in a week. There's absolutely no way that they can be doing high quality work for these veterans. And by the way, the psychologists are not getting paid well for these assessments, which only means that the psychologist won't be invested in actually producing, high quality work for the veteran, which then only hurts our veterans. So we said, no, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way where we could actually do the right thing, make sure we're prioritizing purpose and profit to take care of our community. And so we decided, it was November, maybe 5th or so, we decided 2023, let's go build VMHA. And here we are a year and a half later.
Well, what I like about the assessment is it sort of personalizes my care, because after I take my assessment, I'm properly, let's call it, diagnosed, right? And versus a cookie cutter solution or therapy that I might be, or a group or some type of curriculum, whatever my treatment is, rather than cookie cutter, something feels customized and personalized just for me.
That's right.
I'm more apt to buy into that solution. Whereas if I go to group therapy or one-on-one therapy and I don't connect with the solution, I'm going to say, you know what, this isn't for me. I don't have a problem. And I don't have a problem because I can't see the solution. So avoidance, I return back to, and I'm talking about me personally as a, Marine veteran male, right, of a certain age, that we don't often lean into it. We kind of avoid it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I have one of the things I love about my work, John, is that I get to talk to veterans of, prior generations, right? So we just had a client that was, he's 68 years old out of Houston, Army veteran, so hua to all my Army folks out there. And, in his time, it wasn't a thing you talked about, right? It wasn't, you didn't even, there weren't, commercials and we weren't having, open dialogue like this. And so it was a thing that in fact, we just got the language, but within that decade or so. And so we didn't have the tools. We didn't understand how to have the conversation. And certainly service members who were impacted didn't know where to go. And so one of the joys I have is being able to help veterans who are, 50, 60, 70 or so. And they're like, yeah, you know what? I am having panic attacks related to my service. Oh, I am having dreams about, things related to my service, or I have anxiety or depression. And so, I love that about what we do. But you're spot on about, why we prioritize doing a comprehensive assessment, because it needs to be specific to you, right? And so, and as you know, especially in the military, we got a bunch of sea lawyers, right? You got to, and we've had to build it. We had to get good at figuring things out. And that's what makes it really great at our jobs and doing complex things. When it comes to mental health, though, I encourage our community, let's not be sea lawyers. Let's not guess and say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think that's anxiety, or I think that's PTSD, or I think that's depression. No, let's actually get an assessment. And I have some perspectives on how we could make that fundamental and for veterans leaving service. But let's get an assessment, figure out where you are, figure out where your diagnosis is ethically and accurately. And then now with that assessment, you can then figure out what your next steps will be. Evidence, file your claim to get your benefits, absolutely. And in terms of your quality of life, you now have something you can trust and believe in about where you are, and you can take appropriate actions to get your help. So maybe that is group therapy. Maybe it's, I need to prioritize my own space and time and, mindfulness or whatever. There's a bunch of things you can do. There's no one, trick pony here, but you just got to figure out where you are and then what the next steps are.
You're raising so many ideas and thoughts for me. It's like, listen, when you, it's hard to get into the Marine Corps today. I think they do a fair job of assessing the talent pool and making it, I think any military, because the rewards are so high, I think, for the right candidates. But there was a time when, they would take anyone to fill the ranks. And I wonder in today's military, I know in Marine Corps, of course, there was some level of background check and some interview, sure, but it wasn't a deep level of assessment. But I wonder if there should be, or is there assessment today for those candidates that are going into the service? Do they properly assess people today?
In terms of mental health?
Yeah.
You know what? That's a great question, John. I mean, I'm thinking back to MEPS, right? And yeah. So I'm thinking back to MEPS. I went through MEPS. Was that Staten Island? Or was that Coney Island? No, it was Brooklyn. I went to MEPS in Brooklyn, New York at the time. And, you do the blood work and you do the physical tests and, check for flat feet and all that stuff.
Right.
If I had to guess, well, I would hope that there's some sort of screener that right. use. Now, how thorough that screener is, I don't know. I'd be, if I were a betting man, and I do play poker, but if I were a betting man, I would say, there's probably some room for improvement on that screener. Yeah. And then I would say, as folks are certainly exiting, I think there's a lot of room for improvement to make sure that we're able to understand where they are and what their needs are, and not put it on the veteran to say, you know what, I need to claim this. No, let's give everyone an assessment. Right.
I think it should be part of the ongoing.
That's right.
Benefit package when you're in the service. That almost like they treat elite athletes today. Mm-hmm. A lot of psychology that goes into full peak performance. Let's face it. Especially the Marines and soldiers and sailors and airmen that are over the wire at the tip of the spear.
Yep.
They're elite athletes.
100%.
Right, mentally, physically, and so I think they should be afforded. They should be assessed constantly, just like you would if you were, a quarterback for the Eagles.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And I think what that will do is that it'll open up room for just more honest conversations, right? Like instead of when the walls are up, it's kind of like when you're a kid, and your parents are so strict about something, and so you're not going to tell them that you got home 5 minutes late or something like, really insignificant. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you wind up, holding things back that your parents really want to know because they can help you recognize, oh, that's actually not that bad. This is what you do here, that kind of thing. It's not as egregious as you might think as a kid. Well, like that philosophy, that psychology, or that paradigm is similar to how we've kind of built mental health to be. No, we don't talk about it because I'm in intelligence and I don't share anything with my command and whatnot, or because I don't want to lose my credentials. Well, there's some things that actually wouldn't meet the criteria of losing credentials that we would want to know to be able to figure out, hey, how can we help you to make sure you get the tools so that you can be operational and you can keep doing the great work you're doing, and not impact you long term and, risk your career, your marriage, all those things. So we just have to I love what you're saying, John, about having it be more institutionalized, right? Because I think we'll just have more honest conversation that way. Agreed, 100%.
Excellent. Well, let's talk what's available today. And let's send a message out to our community, the trucktractortrailer.com community. We have about I think 270,000, opt-in subscribers that follow us, and
Wow.
we reach more than that, actually. So, we hope to get this podcast out, this message out. How can people find you? How can people start the process, with VMHA?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say is, our website, VMHA4vets.com. That's VMHORVETS.com. That's one of the best places I point people to just kind of get information about who we are, what we do, how we can help. I have a screener, a public, transparent screener on the website there that, 2:00 in the morning, let's say you're pulled over at a stop and, you're resting a little bit before your next leg, and you could, go on the website, check it out, answer some questions. It'll let you know whether we're a great fit to help you or not, or whether you've been impacted to the level where you've been impacted at all, right? So then we ask a bunch of questions there. So that's one option. I also have on my resources tab on the website is a bunch of, I think, key resources there. Some of which being behavioral health options for our veteran community, as in people that understand our veteran community, right? So that it makes it easier to find that fit. Either they've served themselves or their military spouses, or they just have deep compassion for the community, right? So I point a lot of my veterans and or law enforcement folks towards that category. Certainly, folks, in our trucking industry. And so there's a bunch of things there, or you could just send us an email, right? If you're like, hey, I saw this podcast. I'm curious. You could email info@vmhaforvets.com. My team would be happy to help answer your questions and point you in the right direction.
Excellent. That sounds like a good first step. So just so everyone listening today, viewing today, understand that you can go to, if you're a subscriber to our newsletter, there's probably a good chance that you are. We will be featuring Dwayne and his firm on several newsletters. There'll be a button there, so that'll click directly to Dwayne's website for you to start the process. We're going to try to make it as easy as possible to put you in contact directly with Dwayne and his team. Dwayne, as we wrap up, is there any parting words for our TTT community?
I mean, first off, John and team, thank you so much for having me. This has been, I love being able to share like my journey, and the hope when I share my journey is that other folks are able to see parts of themselves within that journey, because I don't think I'm special at all, right? And so, what I'll share with our community is that when I speak to veterans, more often than not, what many folks say why they haven't filed or why they haven't, put in a claim for their benefits, they'll say, "Oh, I wasn't sure if I deserved it," right? Or they'll say, I wasn't in combat, right? Or, there's someone else that deserves it more than I do. And at the same time, I'm talking to this person and they're telling me that they've been divorced a few times, after service. They're telling me they're having problems sleeping. They're telling me that they've had issues at work or with relationships and whatnot stemming from service. And what I tell those people every single time is, no matter what you've done in your service, if your mental health has been impacted by your service, then you deserve it. And that's full stop. That's it. So that's my message to everyone out there. If you've been impacted, file your claim. If we can help you, we're happy to help.
Excellent. Well, Dwayne, thank you. And let this be the first of several conversations we have. Let's get into, communication out to our trucking community. Again, to the TTT community, especially you veterans out there. We appreciate you. We appreciate your service. Yeah. And we're here to help you, not only to buy and sell used trucks, tractors, and trailers, and to get you financing and warranty and maybe legal advice that you need, but also for your mental health. So we take great pride in being full service. Dwayne, thank you so much for being on. It's great seeing you again.
Great seeing you too, John.
All right. Thanks, buddy. We'll see you later.
You got it.
Bye.
Bye.